There we go. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Engineers Up Filters podcast, episode 175, if I got my numbers right. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson, and tonight I'm drinking a special drink. I'll talk about more in the recap, but I'll just say for now, I'm drinking a grape sparkling water featuring Psyduck.
Oh.
Which I thought, Dayton, that you would like. It is not alcoholic, so I'm sorry, but it's a special beverage, okay?
I'll give you a pass this time around.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll explain it when I get the recap.
All right, I'm Joseph, and I've got a White Claw Refresher Hard Iced Tea, the lemon flavored. I had a couple last night. They're fine. They're carbonated, which I'm not a fan of since it's iced tea. The nude hard iced teas are not carbonated, and they're way better. But these are fine.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm Gabe. It's the same beer as last time. It is a Northeast from Greenbelt. Still working through it.
It ain't broke.
Yeah. Dayton, and I'm drinking Oberon again because I did the first thing that I've done in a really long time, and I bought beer in a greater than 6-pack. So,
ooh, wow.
It's taken me a while.
There we go.
We just can't drink like we used to. Or if you're Jacob, we just don't drink anymore.
Choose not to.
Honestly. Like, literally, I mean, I probably can get my tolerance back up. Like, I'll have, like, one beer, and my gut will be fucked up the next day. And it's just like,
damn.
So it's not fun. But here's what it is.
Definitely don't drink nearly as much just for, like, the sake of sleep quality lately. And I feel like the oldest fucking person on the planet. Where it's like, it's not worth it for me to enjoy this if I can just get better sleep.
Yeah. I just, like, don't need the calories because, like, me and Alyssa Alyssa's been baking more because I'll eat the cookies that Joseph won't eat. He's always got to have some sort of, like, sweet around. So I'm eating a lot of that more sugar. So I probably don't need more alcohol on top of that. But
there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is the Engineers Up Filters podcast, where every other week, the four of us get together and we talk about something that we want to rant about. If you like our show, we post every other Monday on podcast services and YouTube. Don't forget to follow us on social media and Twitch. Links are in the description below. But yeah, also have a little recap. We're recording this one just 1 week after the last one because of scheduling. We don't have a whole lot to talk about. But one fun thing that Joseph and I did is we went to this place called Asia Mall, which is in Eden Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph once had been before, and they brought me along this time. And it's a very cool little spot. It is literally like a mini mall that has a Asian grocery store, and they have a bunch of restaurants and like some other shops and stuff.
The owners of it made a point to try to represent as many Asian cultures as they can too. So it's not like just Japanese or just Chinese. Like, there's a lot of different products and like different cultures and foods and niche products. Yeah, represented there. It's really neat. And continue.
Yeah. So we got some Korean barbecue for lunch, and then Joseph also got some fancy drinks. I don't remember exactly. Did Elsa try boba or not?
She got it was like a
lemonade thing, right?
Yeah, it was like a strawberry lemonade thing, and I got a smoothie.
Oh yeah. And then they had a store there that was kind of like a gift shop type place. That's not the correct term, but close enough. And I noticed it because they had some massive One Piece statues in the front. I was like, oh, you got my attention. And I went in there, and there wasn't a ton of like merch stuff that I was interested in, but they did have like a bunch of statues and like bobbleheads from like Demon Slayer and One Piece and Naruto and stuff. And it's like, I can't become a statue guy. I can't do it. It takes up too much space. It's too expensive. Like even like a small little Tanjiro statue was like $40. I'm just like, this is a road I cannot go down.
Just stick to pop vinyls. Those are super cool.
Yeah. Or the Funko Pops and shit.
I got the same thing. Yeah. I don't know if you could hear the sarcasm in my voice there. But,
if anyone else wants to go to GameStop, that's all they're fucking selling now. Yeah, then they have the grocery store part, which we went to, and the snack game on point, man. Like, holy shit, so many fucking snacks. I got some good ass ramen. I got some special Kit Kats, and then I saw they also had sparkling water. They had some One Piece branded ones, there's some Dragon Ball. They had some like Sailor Moon, and they had some Pokemon ones. And I'm like, you know what? I'll get a Pokemon guy because I think Dayton will like it. So the brand is QDOL, QDOL, and this is like I said, the grape flavor, and it's pretty good. They had a lot of like lychee flavors. So that was interesting. So I'm like, I'm not doing those, and they had another one, but yeah, it was a cool place. I think you would like it, Dayton, quite a bit. I don't know about you, Gabe, but it was a nice little excursion.
What neighborhood is it in?
It's in Eden Prairie, off of Flying Cloud.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit of a hike.
I don't
but
go
not
out
too bad.
that
Don't go on the weekend. It's a fucking madhouse.
Yeah.
Oh, and then
during the week it'd be like an hour for me to get there with traffic. So
yeah, I mean I work like down the road from it, which is probably a bad thing. So I'll be going there more maybe. But the best thing, the best thing that happened was they have like a pretty solid like freezer section, for the grocery store. And we're walking through it, and I see him like, is that a fucking like fully already pre-made ice cream cone, like in the freezer? So it's just like, imagine like an ice cream cone, and they put like a plastic cup underneath and a plastic like lid on top, and it's just ready to go. It's like, yeah, I'm getting that right now. So I grab the ice cream cone. I go and I check out, pop the top, and just start eating it. It's fantastic.
Dude, you were just talking about how you're like trying to watch your calories, and you're like, I saw ice cream in a freezer, and it was in cute packaging. Sold.
I'm taking it. I mean, Gabe, with sweets, I'm going in on the sweets right now. All right, I'm living my best life. I'm saying alcohol-wise,
Oh, okay. I see.
But yeah, I'm like, this is incredible. Why don't we do this in America? Like, the snack game was just incredible there. So that was Joseph could see I was living my best life with eating this ice cream cone. So yeah, Dayton, you said you have a big thing that happened.
Oh, dude, so annoying, so annoying. I purposefully haven't told you guys because I wanted to unveil it on the podcast.
Oh God.
So this past weekend, I took Friday off because I had to fly out east. I had a friend's wedding out there. So I was slated to fly into Providence, right? Providence, Rhode Island. Flight was supposed to leave at 6 a.m. on Friday, and
it's always flight stuff with they do. Every single time.
Yeah, you did not get
Slated and supposed to. Let me know exactly how this went.
Yeah. I've heard this story before.
No. There's several twists here that have not happened to me before. And so 6 a.m. flights, right? I usually don't have an issue with them. I usually get up early, as it is. I've never missed alarms or anything like that, right? So the night before, I had gone out to karaoke, and I had like 2 drinks, like 2 or 3 drinks, over the course of a few hours. So like I wasn't like incredibly drunk. I mean, I had a little bit of a buzz, but like I wasn't like drunk enough to sleep through my alarms, which I did.
No. Oh no.
So slept through.
That's why we told you just not to go to sleep.
I know, but I was so tired at 1 a.m. I was like, I'm just gonna go to bed for an hour.
Oh God.
And yeah, so slept through all of my alarms, woke up at 5:50, rolled over in bed, and I noticed that it was light outside, and I'm like, yeah, that's not good. I was supposed to be up when it was still dark out. So frantically started getting my stuff around, drove to the airport, called the airline, like, yeah, we can get you put onto standby, and you can just hope that you can get on a flight.
And when was it supposed to take off?
6 a.m.
Oh, okay, so you definitely missed the first flight.
I
So
missed
trying to get onto another flight.
Where did you fly out of?
Grand Rapids.
Okay. So that's what, like a 30, 40 minute?
It's like an hour.
Okay.
Hour drive for me. So I get there, right, and I start talking to the agent there. He's like, yeah, we can get you put onto a standby that the end flight would get you to Providence by 9 p.m. And I'm like, that's not any good. Like, the wedding starts at 6 p.m. And so I was like, all right, that's not an option. So I pretty much just start going down the line of like the airport people and just be like, what's the best flight that you can give me right now? So I ended up having to book a one-way ticket to get out there. ended up getting into Hartford, which is further away than Providence is, from the wedding at like, I want to say like 4 o'clock or 5. No, it was 5 o'clock.
Okay.
And then I had one of my friends who was going to the wedding drive from where I used to live up to Hartford, which is like an hour, and then from Hartford to Providence is another like hour and a half.
Oh my god.
And we made it to the wedding by I think like 6:15. So like we literally walked in right as like they were saying like I do and stuff like that. So it was perfect timing. But it was just so like unimaginably stressful for me that morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I can't imagine waking up and looking at the clock. Like just the anxiety, like holy shit.
Yeah, I'm getting secondhand anxiety just from like you describing it.
I know, yeah, it was bad. But then like the rest of my time in Providence was pretty fun. I mean, that Saturday I saw my old roommate and his girlfriend, and then the friend that picked me up hung out with us too, and we just kind of got some really food and hung around and stuff like that. And then on Sunday I just walked around Providence some more, and then I went to the airport. And my flight, I don't know, was supposed to leave at like 5 p.m. And so I get to the airport at 4 o'clock, get through security, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like, not stressing about missing flights. And then we get in line, right? Like we're like boarding the plane, and then I see people like starting to like walk out of the plane, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And then like the pilot gets on whoever the attendant is gets on like the intercom. It's like, yeah, so it looks like DC's having some weather issues, and we're gonna take that time to make some repairs in the meantime. So like an hour goes by, and they're like, yeah, still having weather issues. So at that point, it's like 2 hours delayed. And then at the third hour, they're like, yeah, still having weather issues. And then like people start like heckling these people. They're like, DC doesn't have any weather issues. Like, we can check the radar. And it's like, yeah, like DC was like golden. Like there was no issues at DC.
Yeah.
And then he was just like, yeah, it's actually an air traffic control tower fire. And
holy shit.
And we're like, what? And he's like, yeah, all the flights in and out of DC have been grounded for 3 to 4 hours.
Oh my god. How'd that even happen?
I don't know. But yeah, so then that kind of like started like a mad dash to like the booth being like, can I reschedule my flight? Blah 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 blah. And then because I'm flying into Grand Rapids, which is a small airport, like they didn't have that many flights going in and out of Grand Rapids, so I had to actually sit at a hotel until Tuesday morning. So yeah, it was wicked boring. It was in like the most suburban hell place that this hotel could have been in. Literally nothing in walking distance. And even if I wanted to like get like an Uber somewhere to walk around, it like wouldn't have been worth it. So I just hung out in my hotel room and completed the Pokedex on Pokemon Arceus. So
did the airline at least like pay for your hotel?
Nope. They don't pay for things that are air traffic control related.
Fuck, dude.
That is so brutal, man. When were you supposed to get back? What day were you supposed to get back?
I was supposed to get back Sunday at like midnight. So I ended up missing 2 days of work.
And you had to take more PTO, right?
My boss was nice enough to classify it as like emergency time, so don't have to worry about that, which I'm very thankful. But
that's good. Nice.
Yeah, it was just like the trip was like $600 more expensive than it was supposed to be, and it's like the flight out there was like already really expensive. So it ended up being not worth the money, but it was still good to go to the wedding and everything and see my friends, but like there was certainly a cheaper way to do it.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Holy shit, man. I mean, that reminds me of when my car broke down in Wisconsin driving home from Minnesota, and I was stuck there for 2 or 3 days in a hotel room with the SMU thing. It was in the middle of fucking nowhere, Wisconsin. Nowhere, you couldn't walk. There's no sidewalks.
Yep.
Like, what do you do?
Yeah, you just
exist in this like purgatory.
Watch anime on my laptop and play Switch. But honestly, it was also kind of nice because there was no pressure to do anything. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when I'm like, if it's a weekend, I'm like, I should relax, but also I want to be doing this thing, or I should work on this thing, or it's like when you're trapped in the middle of nowhere in hotel room, it's like no one's expecting you to do shit. So it's like I could like you like kind of fully relax to some extent,
Yeah.
but then you're like, oh wait a second, I'm bored on my mind, I want to go home.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's
that
brutal.
sucks, man.
And I get
Glad
to
you made it
fly
home.
out. I get to fly out again this Saturday. So
No drinking on Friday night for you.
no, I'm not. Even though my flight's at noon on Saturday. Yeah.
Man,
Not taking any
that's
chances.
rough. I had a flight get canceled on or delayed when I was heading out of Grand Rapids for the wedding I was at earlier in the month. It was like 3 hours, and you were saying like it's a smaller airport, so like everyone dashes to the booth, and they're like, "Yeah, the next flight in Minneapolis is like tomorrow." So like I
Yeah.
looked it up immediately on my phone, like nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went to the Founders restaurant and had a couple beers and just waited it out. I mean, what else are you gonna do?
Yep.
But
Yep.
that's the sad thing about small airports. You get a lot less
Yeah.
choice.
Yep. Joseph, anything exciting happen in the last week?
Yeah, I went to see Taylor Swift live.
Oh yeah.
And it was awesome. I gotta say, it was a lot of fun. The first thing that I really noticed was the anti-tech ratio. I've never been in a room with so many women and so few guys. It was like we were walking to our seats and I was like, Jesus Christ, this makes me uncomfortable. Like I'm not
Wait,
used
did
to
you go
this.
on Friday or Saturday?
Saturday.
Oh, you got stuck in the rain, dude.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
Yeah,
those
so we're
TikToks,
getting
dude.
there.
Came by
That
to
was-
pick him up.
Okay, sorry. Continue the
So
story.
anyway,
I just had to ask.
it was a really fun show. I don't know. I like Taylor Swift. She writes some good music. So I had fun. Phenomenal show. Like as far as the production goes, really high quality, really well done. Um, I don't know. I don't know if you guys know like I mean obviously you know of, but like the band Kiss, the music is like meh, but the whole draw of seeing them live is that they put on a show. Like it's a performance more than just people standing up there playing music and
Right.
jumping around having fun, whatever. Like it is a full-on production. There's set pieces, there's graphics on the screen behind her and like it's there were these bracelets that we got that had LEDs in them and then they would time with the music. And so they'd change colors.
Oh, that's cool.
And at first I was like, oh yeah, they're just like kind of blinking randomly and I was like, wait a second, there's like zones. Like you can see like they do like the floor would all like blink intermittently and then they go to like different like the rosewood or whatever.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay. And then they started doing patterns with it. And I was like, well, how are they doing that? Because they handed these to us at the door. Like
Mhm.
they're just passing them out randomly. This isn't like at our seat or anything.
Right.
And then they actually made shapes with it throughout the show. And I was like, I spent like half the concert just trying to figure out like, okay, there's got to be like some sort of like zones built into it and like multiple like there's got to be something to like find location like to at least
Or it's like a
triangulate.
remote, but like, yeah.
I don't know. I spent a lot of time just like thinking about it and trying to I still haven't. I want to pop it open and see like if I can glean anything from it. But that was really cool. So she does like 2 surprise songs with each concert each night. And so her next album release is uh it was 13 days after that show. So 13 is very important to her, whatever. And so she played her one of the biggest songs from that album because it's the re-release that she's doing.
Mhm.
And so it was the first time in 10 years that she had played the song Dear John, which is basically her shitting on John Mayer. Um, And so when she started playing that, I could feel the floor shaking from the people screaming.
Oh my gosh.
It it was crazy. I don't know, it's a fine song, whatever. There were people around me crying because they were so excited to hear it. I don't know.
Oh my god.
Well, like I don't know. Like at the same time, it definitely was an over the top reaction, but I kind of get it.
I
Like,
get it. Yeah, I mean,
you
yeah.
know, it talks about how John Mayer was like a shitty. I mean, he was like in his 30s when she was 19 and they were dating.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of how he's being a creep, and he's kind of never really said all he's really said about it since is like, yeah, she's crazy. Like, what do you want from me? Like, she's a fucking she was a 19-year-old teenager. Like, of course she's crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And it's like, dude, do you not hear the words coming out of your anyway? Not important, but no, it was a really great show. Apparently because of the other surprise song, it's rated as like the top show to have been at. So that was kind of neat. I don't know. People said it was like experience of a lifetime. I thought it was cool. And then yeah, we get outside and it's like everyone's trying to get outside, but it's downpouring. So no one once people got outside, they're like, I don't want to move. I want to not be outside. So it was just like both sides pushing, and we got there and I was like, all right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a left out these doors and we're gonna walk to the corner and then cross the street. We're just gonna go. Like, it's raining. There's nothing we're gonna do about it. Like, traffic's gonna be hell. We're gonna be standing in the rain, or we're gonna be walking through the rain until we find somewhere to stand out of the rain.
Yeah, and meanwhile, it's the cut to my perspective. The plan was for me to pick them up, and I was in the basement playing Final Fantasy. I'm like having a good time, and I'm like, okay, the show's gonna run like 11:30. I'm waiting for Joseph to call, and I go upstairs to refill my water, and I look outside, and it's just pouring rain. I'm just like, oh no, this is gonna be bad.
And like, I'm trying to text Jacob, but because of the rain, my phone screen isn't really working that well because it's like the capacitive touch or whatever's fucking up. And so I'm just frustrated with that. Eventually we figured it out. We ended up walking, I don't know, like a mile or so. And
Yeah,
it's
you
like,
crossed the Stone Arch Bridge, and I grabbed you to the other side, which was
super
easy
convenient once we got there. But yeah, it was kind of almost like Isle Royal, Dayton, when we in the rain. It was like we can't stop.
You
like,
just accept
we're already
it.
soaked through.
Yeah.
Like you're just gonna keep going. Like, we stopped underneath an awning for a while, and it's like it's gonna be a pain for Jacob to get here. We're gonna be waiting longer, or we just keep walking a little bit further, and it'll be so much easier. We'll be across the river. It's just way less headache. Like, we're already soaked through. What are we going to get more wet? Like, what?
Yeah, and by the time you'd gotten to my car, it had stopped raining.
Yeah.
That's probably the funniest thing.
But no, it was a really great show, really fun time. That's about all I've done this week.
Hell yeah. Gabe, anything else? Can you top any of these stories?
No. My week has been pretty okay. I was gonna go camping last weekend. I think I mentioned that before, but you guys just talked about the rain, so didn't go. Probably a good call.
Yeah.
And we got more wildfire smoke and stuff, so sneaking in workouts when I can, when it's not terrible. But yeah, pretty standard. Hung out with some friends, went to some breweries, some normal stuff, and then this weekend I'm gonna try and go do another gravel race. Be about 80 miles, but it's in the middle of absolutely fucking nowhere, so I have to get up a little early. Hopefully I don't drink at karaoke night or something beforehand.
It's different.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all that. It's time for Dayton's topic. Dayton, what do you want to rant about this week?
Yeah, we're ranting about lawns. And
Fuck lawns.
We're all from the Midwest. It's taken us long enough.
we're ranting about lawns and how, in, I will say, most cases, how they are just a blight on the local environment that you're in. So I guess I'll first get up on my soapbox, and then I'll just kind of explain why I hate lawns, and then I don't know, then we can have a discussion. I haven't really fleshed this out at all. I feel like Joseph probably knows a little bit about this. He's probably similar spheres of interests with public transportation and whatnot. I feel like all that kind of goes together for one reason or another. But anyway, so yeah, I think that lawns have a lot of utility, right? Like you can play on them, you can play soccer, you can play football, you can, do all these things on them. But in terms of like maintenance that they take, right? It's like if you're gonna have a lawn, you have to like most people fertilize it. You have to cut it like twice a week. It doesn't
Twice
have
a week.
Yeah, dude, in fast growing areas.
Especially if you fertilize it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then all the equipment that comes into it, right? Because then the bigger the lawn you have, the bigger lawnmower you have to have, and it's just kind of like you're chasing your own tail. It's the reason it's terrible for the local ecosystem is because it gets rid of all like the local like flowers and the word flora that would otherwise be there for like bees and whatnot to survive off of, and all the other bugs, native bugs, to prop up the bottommost area on the food pyramid as it goes up for predators, right? And it's tough because that's like kind of one of like the most like American things that you can have, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live in a single family house, nice yard, picket fence, and own like 2 Labradors or something like that. And it's just culturally, it's so like beaten into us, I feel, that it's like it's weird to us when somebody doesn't have a lawn. But lawns are, historically speaking, a relatively recent thing, and they're also it's like a form of basically wealth. So like the reason why like people started having lawns back in like the Middle Ages, I think, is what they go back to, is because it was essentially a sign of wealth to say, oh, I own all this land and I also don't need a farm on it to live. And when you look at it from like that perspective, right, it's like where it's like nobody in, well, I won't say nobody, the vast majority of people nowadays do not farm to live in first world countries, right? Unless you're purposefully going out and you're homesteading, right? There's farms that are producing just absolutely insane amounts of food that are specialized and give us our food. So it's kind of like a remnant of the past through my eyes, right? And I don't know, I see the utility of them because you can't exactly enjoy throwing the frisbee around and things like that on a meadow or a prairie or something like that as easily as you can on just a nice lawn. But I think in the vast majority of cases, I think that lawns could at least be curbed back, cut them back into like an area that you're okay with having, and then plant other things, native plants elsewhere. But do you guys have any?
What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can definitely expand on like the points Dayton brought up with like the environmental impacts, right? Like, yeah, you've got this machinery and you are running it pretty often, and the fumes that you're running it, and that's just with a mower. A lot of people will have an edger and like edge their sidewalks, and then you have a leaf blower to clean up the trimmings or whatever. One of my coworkers, he worked there in the fall, or in the winter rather, and then he wasn't able to stay on for the summer. But so currently he's doing lawn maintenance at lawn care company, and he's like, the fumes from mowing lawns all day is more toxic than the fucking smoke we have right now. Like, just being around this, and he goes, and so there's that aspect. He's like, yeah, we have electric mowers, but you still have to charge them. That's a whole other issue. And we don't use them half the time because if something goes wrong, gas powered is more reliable. We have more of them and more people that know how to work on them, and then with like the plant life itself, lawns are considered like a waste because grass is not meant to grow 1 to 3 inches, right? It is, especially the grass that we have, is like a foot or so plus at least before it starts to flower. And it'll flower and, you know, grow more, but we don't let it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have one plant in this, you've got acres, right? An acre plus of land. One plant that you're not allowing to flower. It doesn't provide any shade or cover for small mammals, for insects, for anything. And yeah, obviously the bees. So it's like it's the worst of the worst. And yeah, people just have these massive expanses of
Mm-hmm.
it. And that also takes up space that pushes homes further apart. And because these are all single family homes, this is pushing everything away. And this is just urban sprawl at that point,
Mm-hmm.
which makes towns and suburbs just completely unwalkable because to get to my neighbor doors down, I have to walk half a football field because there's so much dead space, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of that, kind of expanding on, and you like we're definitely hinting at that, but
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, no, fuck lawns. Especially like we live across the street from a park. Like I'd rather live near a park that I can meet up with friends. I don't need to maintain like my
Mm.
taxes go to it, whatever. But this is a community space that people are free to use and free to take care of too. Like there's trees there that have been there for years. There's spaces of wildflowers and stuff within it, so it's not just grass. There's all kind, and it's city maintained, so it's not fertilized, it's not mowed every week or whatever.
Mhm.
It's enough to keep it nice, but it's not like anything crazy. um yeah, fuck lawn.
Gabe, you have any hot lawn takes?
I think like the only thing that is missed from like that I like could see as like the biggest issue really, and we're kind of lucky because we're in Minnesota, but a lot of states, especially out west during droughts, the big thing is water. Lawns take up a lot of water, and you see a lot of times when there are droughts, the state and cities will make ordinances to tell you to stop mowing or to stop watering your lawn, but it's hard to like see that because we live in a place where there's a lot of lakes and a lot of fresh water, and even Michigan, like the massive lakes. So Minnesota's kind of been going through a drought at least the last probably 2 weeks before that big rainstorm, and even like around my neighborhood walking around, I see a lot of people watering their lawns because the grass is dying, and even in the parks that I go to like every day, they're a little dead, and they're busting out the sprinklers and all that stuff. So I think to me that's like the biggest thing that I can see being problematic, because it's also the same water that we use to drink. And again, I don't think that's much of a problem for us, but it definitely is in a lot of other places in the world. And it can be, I think, none of us are golfers really, but I think golfing is like another example of like just the overuse of it. But if you're using it for a recreational purpose, like Dayton was saying, like I see the argument of it being, it having a use case.
Right.
It's nice
Right.
to play soccer and sports, and yeah, maybe golf uses more water than, I don't know, some other forms, but we also do have forms of synthetic things for a lot of sports. When I play soccer, most of it is in synthetic fields. So I do think it has its place, and I think that it is like a weirdly satisfying thing. Maybe that's just like an American thing.
Yeah.
Or it's just the monkey brain and you seeing like green and it's nice and it's just like tidy. But I do think there are parts that are maybe a little overdone, and I think even I think it was this year, there was the whole like no mow May movement or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
But there's not really a ton of like super concrete data on if that 1 month was enough to like make a change. Because like the idea from what I remember was like May is like the big month for pollinators, specifically bees.
Right.
So the idea was don't mow your lawn. They can get on about their business. You can get your flowers, and then you mow. But because it's such a new concept, I think there just needs to be a little bit more data on that. And I know I've listened even to a couple like science-based podcasts where they talk about having like a better solution is just to have a patch of your lawn that you just don't mow. Like you just like this corner is like the wild corner, so it allows the insects, it allows the birds, it allows the bees to like have their cover, their food that has natural flowers and stuff. And to me, that makes a lot of sense to have like actual spaces of wilderness. And I do think a lot of lawns too also weirdly don't have a lot of trees, and maybe that's just because it's annoying to take care of. But I just like a good tree, man. Like I enjoy the shade of the trees, and I don't know. I think it makes it feel a little bit more comfy.
Well, trees are a liability to homeowners,
Yeah,
to insurance companies. They are. They
I know,
fall
but-
over, damage. That's a big part of it too.
yeah.
Not related to that. My parents have to cut down one of their trees ahead forever because I think it just got sick or whatever, which is sad. I think they're gonna try to plant a new one, but
Trees are expensive, also.
yeah,
Especially if you're trying to get like a big tree.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Dave, when you said in the chat you want to talk about lawns, I thought you were gonna talk about the dick measuring part of it. That is
Oh,
kind of
see,
new to this point in the
that's
Midwest,
that's another aspect of it.
of just
That
like,
just adds to it.
oh
right?
yeah, exactly. It's these guys that are just obsessed with having the best lawn in the neighborhood and like they got to have everything perfect and all that.
Mhm.
Like I saw
Or
a
you have
TikTok.
like HOAs that like force
Oh,
people to
God.
keep it within a certain limit.
Fucking HOAs, dude. I saw a TikTok recently of this couple was like driving, and the husband's like, pull over, and they pass this house with like this immaculate lawn, and he's like, I gotta ask this guy what he does because I can't believe how good this dude's lawn is, and they were talking about like fertilizer and all that stuff, and I don't know, it's just funny because that's something that so because I thought this was going, I wrote down possibly talk about outdoor decorations as well, because like I just don't care about any of that shit. Like I don't care how
Yeah.
good my lawn looks. I don't care about decorations outside. Like you get people doing the crazy stuff like Christmas and all that and Halloween. But to your point, like I totally hear what you guys are saying. I guess my questions are like, I understand like where we are, but I guess my question is, what's the ideal and how far away are these two things, and what's kind of the compromise we can make? Because like I think it's also good to have areas where, especially like kids can like be active, right? Because I think being active is important, and I think the park thing is really big. Like Joseph said, I think being close to a park is awesome. I think Minneapolis is pretty good about that, having a good amount of parks around.
Yeah, I'd say they're pretty good. They get like top 3 every year in the country for like best parks.
Yeah, no, it's great, and but like for just something like the space between homes and just like the size of the lawns, and that's taking up a lot of resources. Like, is the alternative just to have like super compact housing and like really vertical housing everywhere, but that also like you're not going to have any wildlife then? Like if it's a super compact city, you'll have it in the parks, but anywhere else you're not really going to have wildlife until you leave the city. Was that better or worse? Net positive, net negative for the environment? And yeah, so I'm just curious, but also we're not going to redo our cities at this point because they're just old and massive. So
Yeah,
it's like,
you're
how do
asking
we-
like
yeah.
walkable cities as a question. I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. So like in like a perfect walkable city, how much nature is there? Because I think I would assume it'd be very compact. So I assume there's not gonna be a lot of room for nature except for designated spots with parks.
Well, I mean, ideally, you look at the Netherlands. It's one of the best examples.
Sure.
Poster child.
Yeah, they have a lot of trolley lines or light rail, and because it's just two rails on the ground and then electrical wires up top is what's powering it. People will have grass and wildflowers on the tracks, and then you can have trees along it as long as you maintain them away from the lines and stuff, and even like walking paths and bike paths rather than street parking everywhere.
Right.
You can use that space for trees, for flower beds, for stuff like that. So rather than like And not to say that like parks are eliminated by any means, right? But like you have it interspersed rather than just a concrete jungle. You do have like trees lining street, like more boulevardy stuff and flower beds around like the store entrances and stuff like that. And like, yeah, sure, you can do vertical with housing and like compact it, but really the issue is that like because of this sprawl, you have a house with a lot of dead space, and then a house with a lot of dead space, and then a house with a lot of dead space, and then you take you can take those houses, condense it, and then you reuse that dead space for something else. And maybe it's, nature and maybe it's not, but it's used rather than just quote unquote useless. Like obviously, like if you've got a family, you can have kids running around, but they're not running around every day. They're not, playing soccer every night and that's not to say that's every family isn't, because there are some that will be. But, that I grew up with a pretty large yard, and I used it when I did, but it wasn't, we weren't out there every night. I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, and I totally get that. It's just hard because like we can't just transform every city in America into a walkable city, right? It's just
We
not gonna happen.
transformed them from walkable cities.
Yeah, but I just don't see it happening in the near future, is what I'm trying to get at. And so like where we're currently at, because I follow another TikTok account that is a lawn care person. Basically, if he sees a house that is like completely overgrown, he'll just go and fix it up for free. And a lot of times you'll see these sidewalks that you can't even tell it's a sidewalk anymore because it's just completely overgrown with just everything that's there. So like if you need some degree of maintenance to be able to use the walkable infrastructure we do have, maybe it doesn't have to be as much as we already do. But I'm just like, it's just hard for me to imagine like the best case scenario in our current state of the U.S. I guess.
I mean, I think
things are already established.
What's difficult with that is that it's because I would say it's largely because the plants that we currently are growing in a lot of these areas are not meant to be unkept. And then once they go, unkept and they aren't cut, then they look like shit, right? It's just like, oh, like this thing's supposed to grow to be 3 feet tall, except we keep it, cropped at, a few inches. And so of course that's going to look bad when you just let it go. But if you plant stuff that's native and that's in the, in the local ecosystem, and let's say you plant a mix, like there's some things that'll cap out at about a foot high, other things, a little bit taller, but it's not going to be, if you do it in a well-maintained way, it's not going to be, if you let it go, it's not going to become overgrown. It's just going to reach its maturity. It's going to flower and bloom, and then it'll just look normal, right? It's what you're used to seeing in your local ecosystem.
Sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to like the question of like the use case for humans and the use case for everything else. That's a problem I think we have all over. I mean, national parks is a whole nother fucking can of worms. But I don't know. I guess like kind of just going off of the park thing that you were talking about, or like the park system, I think that model, at least to me, makes a lot of sense because there is like a communal space where, like, I guess so. The place that I live in, I don't really have a yard to play in, even though I guess I wouldn't play in a yard, I guess, at this age. But it's pretty small, and there's a park like 2 blocks away. Not even. It's a block away. And it's fucking awesome park. If you guys don't know what the hell I'm talking about, look up Boom Island in Minneapolis. It's my favorite fucking park.
Slaps. Yeah.
I walk in it every single day, like as a mental health walk between work from home or if I'm done with work. And the reason I love it so much is because I think they do a really good job of having use case for humans where there are parts where it's just a field and you'll see people like sit out and just like have a picnic or, hang out, like have a common space. But there's a smaller park attached to it called BF Nelson that is a lot more like wild, I guess. And they do still mow some parts of it, but they leave a lot of it to just its own devices. it's fucking awesome. I see so much cool shit. I saw a cardinal. I saw some baby ducks. I saw a woodpecker just before this fucking podcast. It was great. Like, there's a lot of like natural wildlife that I think kind of sticks to that stuff because it is in the situation that it is. But it's also like kind of a win-win because I get to enjoy looking at baby ducks and they get to like have space where there's food and and actual like cover, so I think it is important that a lot of more cities start focusing on those type of things because I think we have to kind of compromise between the use case for a human and then the use case for giving wildlife and ecosystems like an actual chance, even if it is technically I'm in a city. There's some good pockets,
Yeah, and that's tough because I would say that a lot of people in Western society they kind of view humans as entirely removed from nature.
Right.
But it's like that. It's not how it's been for like a long time. Like that's a relatively recent idea that people think that humans are removed from nature. And I think that's where it comes from, is that people are thinking, oh, we need to just do our own thing. Like we don't want to have to intermingle ourselves with the flora and fauna of the area.
Yeah. I know you're playing devil's advocate, but I do think there's a lot of data and a lot of studies that show that humans' mental well-being is improved when they're in green spaces. And like I said, that's my mental health walk spot. And it's like a block away. And it sounds hokey, but I do like feel better. Like I don't wear headphones. I just kind of like sit and observe and I don't know. I just feel better. And it's like, I think we are at a point where maybe there are people who don't realize how nice that can be because they haven't had those experiences in a while, or even know that it's something they want because they don't have, so.
Right. And I think too, if there were more wildlife places, I think ironically enough, people would be less bothered by wildlife, if that makes sense. Because I'm just thinking of, we have this fat ass squirrel that comes and tries to eat at our plants we're growing in the back. We're trying to grow some veggies, and I see him every once in a while. I was trying to dig for seeds and shit. And it's like, well, if he had more of a place to hang out with the squirrel buddies, and get some natural seeds and stuff, probably wouldn't be coming up to our place and trying to get our stuff. So I wonder if that would, I don't know, respecting their space and also having our own space, and then times we can go in.
Fun fact, though, brown squirrels in Minnesota are like more or less planted because the guy who was the grandfather of the park system in Minneapolis didn't like a certain color of squirrels, so he killed them all and replaced them.
All right.
It's like he was squirrel racist, is what you're telling me.
He was squirrel racist.
Well, yeah,
gosh.
Was it brown squirrels? I think
it was he didn't like black squirrels, if I remember correctly, and replaced them with brown squirrels.
Yeah, that's kind of common across the U.S. I think brown squirrels. No, I'm pretty sure brown squirrels were native to Europe, and black squirrels were native to the United States. And they brought the squirrels. I don't know if they brought them or they like ended up on
hitched a ride.
He reintroduced them specifically in Minnesota. But I think that brings up an important question of like, at this point, don't get me wrong, I think green spaces are great, but we've either knowingly or unknowingly invited so many different things into the ecosystem that it's not quote unquote natural, I guess. Like it's kind of I don't know. Invasive species is a very complicated subject, but even if you were to, it's hard to just like let things go as the way they are now versus like making sure that you preserve the natural order of things, because if you just like let a park go to its own devices, now that there's invasive species, there may be one that has some advantage or whatnot. Just kind of another element to it.
It's the shitty thing about where humans are at right now in the food chain is that we've effectively changed things so much that if we were to let things go uncontrolled, the things that are supposed to be there to control that are no longer there. Or we're like, no, that's not allowed. We can't do that anymore. like the whole wildfire situation, like at least I can't speak for the Canadian wildfires, but the wildfires out west, from what I understand, right? I mean, I'm just an armchair expert. I don't have a degree in this or I don't work in this field. But from what I understand is it because of bad forest management in the sense that they didn't do any controlled burns to get rid of all this highly susceptible kindling, which then built up over years and years and years and years. And then that's what really stoked these fires to reach the magnitude that they're at. And even in the case of like, I know that like Isle Royale is a bad example of this because both instances of moose and wolves, well, wolves might have been native there, but moose were not. Moose were brought over by, I think, the Ford family to Isle Royale. Yeah. And if we're to let those go unchecked, then we would have had the case like 2 years ago or 3 years ago when there were like 2 aging wolves left on the island and the moose were just running around unchecked. And they were just absolutely terrorizing the island.
They had to add wolves to the island.
Yeah, they literally airdropped in. They airdropped in wolves to the island.
The little parachutes, they're coming in hot.
To keep them in check. So that's part of the issue is that we've changed things so much where it's like even if we want things to be wilderness and not do anything, our actions still have an effect on those areas.
Or even like what you were saying to the point of like wildfires where generally if no humans were to touch that stuff at all, like there is cycles where there are fires and burns, and then that has nutrient-rich soil, and then like kind of has a rebirth. Like that's just kind of a natural cycle of things, and that unfortunately kills tons and tons of animals. But it's also not safe for us when you have fires. So I think I'm not saying like humans should just fucking do absolutely nothing. I just we need to be better about like the decisions that we do make, and be a little bit more smart about making it in a sustainable way without completely deconstructing an ecosystem by introducing an unlimited amount of fucking moose or something, I don't know. I think it's a tricky balance, but I do think we should be, what's the word? Stewards? Is that the word all the nature people use?
Good stewards of the environment.
We kind of have to be,
I mean, it sounds like we need like more of an intervention than that. I mean, to me, it sounds like we need to form like a council of like botanists and ecologists and biologists and be like give them carte blanche to go into any city and be like, this is what we're fucking doing to try to fix things,
who's gonna pay for it though? Nobody wants to pay for that.
I know, which is shitty, but
yeah,
I'm just saying. It seems like after this conversation, like because we can't like upend the housing and lawns and stuff. Like it feels like the easiest, heavy quotes, and easiest thing to do would be to change what's planted and the species that are around. But so that you need some experts to come in and analyze the situation and, like I said, have carte blanche. I mean, we don't have to get into a whole budget conversation, but we have the money. We are the richest country in the world. We have the money to do this stuff. We just choose not to because it's not a priority for a lot of citizens, probably because they don't realize what the situation is, or they don't realize how bad it is. So I guess step one would be to do some marketing and be like, and education campaigns to be like, hey, we need to do this. But it's America. We hate education, so that probably won't happen.
And I think that like the individuals can do more than, this is an instance where the individuals have a lot of power, I would say, over their local ecosystem. Because if you have an acre lawn, and even if you turn half of that into like if you plant it sustainably and you turn it into a prairie or a meadow or whatever is supposed to be in your local area, then even that half of an acre is going to make a huge impact on your local ecosystem. And then if it's in a well traveled area, then other people are going to start seeing that. And if it doesn't look like shit, right? Like if you're not just letting your lawn go for a month versus actually planting nice looking plants and flowers, wildflowers and whatnot, then people are going to be like, oh, that's more normal. And it'll get conversations.
Unless you're in an HOA and they force you to do it because you pay, $500 a month for them to yell at you.
Those bastards.
So the real first step is to get rid of all the HOAs. And then
I just think there's some societal pressure, like you were just talking about the guy, like how does he get his law like that? That I think is a huge hurdle over that, you know.
Yeah,
where-
that's a culture thing, though, man. I think it's an American culture thing.
Yeah.
yeah. But
That's
you hear
so
so many
ingrained.
memes of like parents are like, oh, he hasn't mowed his lawn, like, and they judge him silently. It's like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, last time I was home, I think it was last time, recently, I was playing with my nieces and nephews in the yard, and they have a trampoline, so we were jumping on it, and I made some comment like, "Oh, I don't get to do this very often. This is a lot of fun." Like, well, why don't you get a trampoline? It's like, I don't have anywhere to put it. They're like,
Yeah.
what? I'm like, I don't have a yard, and they're like, oh, you don't have a yard? And I'm like, sure. They're like, what, 5 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know anything better.
So like, you know, they live in like a suburb basically, and so it's like that's what they're used to. That's what they know. So like, I get it, but it's still like so funny. Like, it's just so ingrained. Like, how do you live without a yard? So I got a park across the street. Like, I don't need a yard.
Donate the trampoline to the park.
Yeah, that's
you
not
go.
a liability.
that sounds like a lawsuit. That's waiting to happen.
Just have,
We'll
have
accept
a
all the
tally.
risk.
Have a tally of number of broken arms throughout the year.
Well, we get one with a net, so it like mitigates.
Oh,
So it
that's
strangles
totally
them
safe,
instead
yeah.
of breaking their arms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly, way
So
better.
you only get suffocations.
Well, boys, I think we solved the issues in America in this podcast.
Hey,
Look at
that's
us
what we
go.
do best.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the podcast. Hope you learned something, or maybe learn something you want to go investigate more. If you like our show, you can follow us on our social medias and on Twitch, and you can find our shows every other Monday. But until next time, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.